Dear Bleecker Street, putting audio description on a film really is not that expensive, and it allows for a complete experience for your entire audience instead of just the sighted people of the audience. So you've been around long enough now that uh, you should be responsible for this kind of stuff. A little bit better than you are, but I'm a music theater nerd, and I was always going to watch Waitress the musical. So this is a review of Waitress, which I got off of Apple without audio description. But um, as soon as I found out this was happening, before it was ever released theatrically, I'd already sort of made that choice up in my mind. Like when I heard that when I got a whisper of Waitress the musical was filmed, and I was like, I'm done. You know, it's my prerogative. But for a lot of other people who maybe aren't as familiar with it and are going to it for the first time and trying to open their minds and aren't familiar with the show, the musical, the music, didn't see the movie, are not music theater junkies, those people are left out in the cold here by Bleecker Street. Again, which is a company that I believe has enough money to drop, you know, a little bit of money on accessibility for their films. I think they should prioritize accessibility. Um, it's not, this is the opposite of inclusivity when you release a film that has no accessibility. And I heard this film did not have audio description in theaters from people who tried to see it. And then also it doesn't have audio description on Apple. So I'm assuming this film never had an audio description track made for it. However, I'm aware of audio description tracks that have been made for other things that have also just never appeared on those things. I don't know why people are commissioning audio description tracks that they're not using. Who knows? Crack, just to piss us off is the reason. But it is a musical, and I do watch a lot of stuff off of Broadway HD. So I always ask myself the question, now we're into a new territory here. I always ask myself the question, do I grade this? Do you get more out of the performance by watching the film than you would if you listened to the cast album? Because there are some shows where contextually, if you're a music theater junkie, if you're here, there are entire scenes that give context to songs that without it, the song doesn't make as much sense. But when you see the scene that happened right before it, the dialogue that's not included on the track, it makes more sense. So because there's a way, and this doesn't apply to other films, because nobody just listens to the soundtrack for a film. There's nobody who just went out there and watched Oppenheimer. Like, the alternative to Oppenheimer is to either read the screenplay when it's released for like its Oscar consideration. A lot of times those things are available online, or listen to the soundtrack, or try to do both. Like, I don't even conceptually know what you would do to a non-musical, but because musicals are the way that they are, they always have cast albums. Sometimes those cast albums do not have all the songs on them, which is a reason to watch the show. Sometimes it's a show with a lot of dialogue where you have a lot of context. Waitress is a show that doesn't have a ton of set changes. It's a show that does have some dialogue that takes place in between scenes. So it could be eligible for a grade. Will I grade it? Let's talk about that. First of all, I love Waitress. I think it's a great show, and I realize that this is not the original cast, and I think Broadway fans would debate on whether or not it should be, because you would have two choices here. And one is you get to see Sara Bareilles performing her own material, which is what this is. The other would be you actually get to see the original Tony-nominated cast, which would include the late Nick Cordero. So think about that. If we had actually recorded the original Broadway cast, you would get to see, you know, a Nick Cordero tribute. I'm told, I can't confirm this because there's no audio description, that there is a nice tribute to both Adrienne Shelley, who was in the movie and passed. She was the director of Waitress and also played, I forgot her name. The one of the two best friend waitresses, the one that doesn't sing "I Didn't Plan It," um, and also Nick Cordero, two people who have been part of the Waitress family who have since passed on. That at some point that they acknowledge that, either before or after. I heard that in another review that they thought that was really nice. So yes, that's the alternative. So I don't even know which version we should be watching. You know, this is not the original cast. Keala Settle is not here, which I would have loved to get. I mean, this girl can sing, and this girl really made me like not. Honestly, I didn't miss Kayla that much, but I still would have loved to have the totality because I didn't see it on Broadway. So I would have loved to see Kayla's like the whole performance instead of just what I have on the cast album. But damn, this is somebody who's gonna get a Tony nomination in her own right for something down the line. I can tell you that right away. Thought it was a fantastic performance. I should have memorized her name before the script, but I thought I was just going to be talking a lot about Sara Bareilles. And so, yeah, so there's the original cast idea, which this is not. And then there's Sara Bareilles, who wrote the show, and she's in it now, with a lot of people who you may or may not be aware of. So, it's up to you as to which one you think is the better version or the one that you expected to see or wanted to see. Do I think that there's value in watching this without audio description? Sure. First of all, there's an entire character that barely sings, but has a ton of dialogue throughout the film. The older gentleman who is usually played by like as much of a classic actor / legend actor that they can get for the role. It's sort of interesting that this is what they chose for the film performance. They've had Al Roker do it on Broadway, just to give you an idea. Not that he's a classic actor, that's definitely stunt casting. He made his Broadway debut in Waitress. But to give you an idea, in the film, before it was a musical, it was Andy Griffith. So, yeah, it was a nice little nod to the fact that there's sort of a legend sitting at this table, somebody who's always done more. And it's a great performance. And I without audio description, he has like a little song that he sings at the end, and that's it. He doesn't do anything else. He has a ton of, his performance is like 90% dialogue. So if I tell you to just go off and listen to the cast album, you're missing a whole performance from an entire character. There's also the gynecologist that she goes to visit and ends up flirting with. That takes the place of Nathan Fillion's character from the movie. There's a whole thing here. It was a movie, then it was a Broadway musical on stage, and now it's a taped recording of the Broadway musical. So there are like 3 versions of this that I can reference. His character has a really lovely and sassy front desk lady who also doesn't get her due unless you actually watch the totality of the production. If you're just listening to a cast album, you don't really understand how great that actress is either. So the same could be said for the guy that actually is, I don't know, the cook or manager of the restaurant. It's really unclear what he actually does there. Carl something Cobb, I don't know. Some of these minor characters, they live in dialogue, you know. There are some characters that sing a lot. There's some characters that don't sing at all. So if you don't watch the whole show, You kind of don't even know they're there. So, or they just sing as part of the ensemble, but they don't even have a featured solo in a song, you know? It's just kind of depressing. Um, Lots of little scenes where she talks to her baby throughout the thing. Lots of the whole sort of uh, scene towards the end that you need dialogue for that. You know, there's a lot of stuff here. I'm leaning towards the fact that if you're enough of a music theater junkie, that you still have to watch this. If you're just passing through and you have no um, idea what Waitress is, what Waitress is, try to find a live theatrical version of it in your area, perhaps with people who are doing live audio description. Since this is closed on Broadway, there are going to be theaters that are going to start doing regional productions of it in your area. So look for that. It's a hot show, so when it does start popping up, it's probably going to be done at theaters that have budgets to do audio description because they have the budget to pay for the rights to Waitress. Shows that come right off of Broadway are usually quite expensive, especially if you're doing like the regional premiere for them. So yeah, that would be my recommendation, so that way you can get your audio description and your show, unless you really truly deeply need Sara Bareilles. But in that case, I'm assuming you're not that invested in the show. You know, I'm kind of, that's my recommendation for people who are like, oh, I'd kind of like to know what this is about. You may not be deeply invested in who is in the cast. If you are deeply invested in Sara Bareilles, if you're you're going to watch this no matter what. I don't even know why you're here, just to find out whether or not I liked it, I guess, probably. Like, if you were a Sara Bareilles fan before she ever did Waitress, and you've just been following her career, I could tell you that, you know, that this is like The Ring, and after you watch the film, you're going to get a phone call that just says 7 days, and now I'm just waiting. I've got 7 days, guys. You'll still go watch the movie. You know, that's the thing about you. You know that there are a whole bunch of Taylor Swift fans that have seen Cats. Doesn't matter how much people say they didn't like Cats, they still went and watched it. There's a whole bunch of Swifties that show up for Cats. They may have just like tried to find only her performance and like fast forwarded through the film and then like ended. You know, to be like, well, we're done. We're out. Peace out. When it's over. But they saw it. They saw her. Yeah, so if you're a Sara Bareilles fan, then I can't stop you. If you're in that great debate of should I or shouldn't I, I'm familiar with the show. My answer to you is, how familiar are you? Did you get to see the show already in its entirety, live somewhere? Then maybe you don't need to see this. I haven't gotten that chance. So, because I don't live in New York and I haven't seen it on Broadway. I mean, I suppose I could have watched a pirated copy. There's usually a pirated copy on YouTube. But I don't like to do that. That's not really fair. I use that for extreme circumstances. Like extreme circumstances. I prefer something at least like this that gives me some context. So I'm going to break from my usual tradition. I'm going to go ahead and give Waitress a grade, because I loved the musical going in. I knew I was always going to watch this. I think Bleecker Street has some other films coming up. Freud's Last Session, I do believe, is theirs, which will give me another opportunity when that is released to the streamer or on video on demand to call them out for what I'm assuming is a lack of accessibility. Maybe it's just this one thing that they didn't provide audio description for, but it's not that expensive to provide accessibility, and Bleecker Street has been around for too long, and I know they have money. They're not, every once in a while, I'll see an indie that's picked up by a distributor I've never heard of before. I'm like, I don't even know who you are. So, but Bleecker Street's been around for too long, and I'm not putting up with this bullshit. I will go ahead and grade Waitress. And this will be one of the weird exceptions where I don't just say unwatchable, because I think there's value in seeing this over just listening to a cast album. So because of the way that it is, the very specific type of presentation, and because I think a lot of people who are coming to see this are fans that are going to watch it anyway, like me, begrudgingly, and just hate Bleecker Street for the rest of our lives, and have a personal grudge. That's what's happening, basically. I have a grudge against Bleecker Street. But Waitress the musical was one of the most delightful experiences I've had this year. I'm so glad that they filmed this. I love it. This replacement cast is excellent, and I'm giving Waitress an A. But please fucking add audio description to musicals. Thank you. Anyway, we deserve it too. I also have a website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can follow me on X or Instagram at MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what is audio description, where you can watch it. And you can go to the ADNA.org. That's the ADNA.org. And it'll let you know who's narrating your favorite film and television series. That's it for me today. I will watch something else and see you guys on the other side.